Ça qui nous dit on peut esprit avancer avec lui. Nous détruire quel type de virus c'est là. Virus là aussi, on connaît avec les temps, il y a des différents noms. Il y a un virus, c'est qu'il y a un type UK, veut dire l'Angleterre. Il y a un autre qui est appelé virus sud-africain. Il y a un autre qui est appelé brésilien, un autre appelé japonais. Alors, le virus là aussi, le COVID-19, mais il sont différents par pays. Et puis, à ce terme, nous avons connu, est-ce que ça va être qui nous fait gagner dans un cas local là? Est-ce que ça va être là? Énorme, est-ce que c'est que je sorti un virus, ce qui nous fait appeler variant sud-africain, variant sorti d'Angleterre, Japon, brésilien, nous l'avons connu. Alors, le laboratoire sud-africain, c'est un grand laboratoire, c'est un centre, une référence, centre de référence de l'OMS. De 5 mois, c'est ça, virus qui nous tient au début. C'est-à-dire virus historique. Ça même virus
Ho detto così che tu unmute.
Hello.
En plaats que utilizzato internet, là tu gagnes ton volume. Parce que tu vas tomber, toi. Parce que quand on range, on gagne une caméra avec un volume de tout ça là. Si tu mute, il va pas dans toi. C'est que toi qui peux pas cantonner. Ça te veut toi. Oh. Non, non. Comment est-ce que ça veut dire?
Philippe a dit aujourd'hui, et un petit peu qu'on a sur le soleil.
Ouais, ouais.
On a beau dire au monde, avec un abri dans la bord.
Oh.
Un pantoufle.
What, of course, what you can say to the drug abuse in the following way.
Good afternoon and good evening, distinguished ladies and men. It is 14 hours sharp GMT, and I am and then to set it rolling, I have the honor of calling the director of Forum for Cultural Research in Africa, FARA, Dr. Agri Agumya, to quickly give us the brief welcome remarks. Dr. Agri, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Wole. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the first technical webinar of the Soil Initiative for Africa. I want to thank you very much for accepting our invitation to this webinar. I was very happy to see the prompt acceptances of the invitations that we sent out last week. I'm also very pleased that many big names in the domain of soils are participating in this meeting. So the expectations are high on my part, and I believe on the part of many who are participating. In the interest of time, I will limit my remarks to just a warm welcome and say one or two things about FARA, which is hosting this webinar and has been mandated to facilitate the development and launch of the Soil Initiative for Africa. In this, FARA is working together with several key continental and regional agricultural research organizations. FARA, we are the apex continental body for agricultural research and innovation in Africa. And we are a technical institution of the African Union Commission on matters concerning agricultural research and innovation. FARA works in concert with the continental apex body for agricultural extension called AFRISOILS, and the sub-regional apex organizations responsible for agricultural research, namely ASARECA in East and Central Africa, CORAF in West and Central Africa, CADESA in Southern Africa, and NASRO in North Africa. So this is the collective, the consortium of institutions that are working together to facilitate the development of this initiative. And I wish to take this opportunity to acknowledge them and to recognize their contribution to this effort. I also want to recognize the contribution of many non-African institutions that have devoted time to working with us on developing this initiative, and also to many other institutions and individuals who have put in the time. The convening of the forums leading to the elaboration of continental initiatives like the Soil Initiative for Africa is one of the functions of FARA. I just want to point out that we are very happy that this initiative, this latest Soil Initiative, is anchored in African institutions. And we believe this is very important because it assures the ownership of the initiative and its sustainability. We have examples of initiatives that have lacked these, and that has undermined the impact they have had over time. So I am conscious of the time. I just want to welcome you all and to wish you very fruitful deliberations. Over to you, Wole.
to present a few slides just to do an introduction into this webinar. Okay. Well, it's showing clearly here. I guess you are able to see this. Yeah. I mean, this presentation is the first developing and launching the soil initiative for Africa. And then I quickly just, well, the soil initiative for Africa is an upcoming initiative. And then the purpose is to provide an holistic response to soil management issues in Africa. On the continent is really, really frightening. Of course, Africa boasts itself as having 60% soils in Africa, and we strongly think that this is going to be the source of a very good production asset for food and fiber in the coming dispensation. But very well, the hope may be jeopardized. And that is why this initiative is very prominent in our heart and mind. Now, this initiative recognizes that there are a number across board in Africa and in other continents. But this initiative has its own specific role, and its role is just to galvanize knowledge and bring that many knowledge and technologies and inventions have been generated over time by research. But they are not used at the scale that it will affect the desired type of impact. And so Soil Initiative for Africa aims at looking at now, thought has been going on around this. And then the paper I projected here was published in the paper was published by the Council on Global Affairs, and it is this paper. It actually happens to be one of the initial paper that is considering soil initiative for Africa. I mean, this building block needed to address the issue of soil degradation and to ensure resilience and adaptation is a number of research programs have come and gone, and ones are still existing. The mechanism financial mechanisms also seems to be existing, and the global partnership is existing for Africa to target that we halt the degradation and bring it to a minimum. And then the issue of political awareness and leadership also exists. The framework that Dr. Agri mentioned in his introductory comment also is existing in. Let me say that the constraints to improve soil fertility in Africa are not mainly technical. They revolve around institutional issues, the issues of scaling technology, then the issues of coordinating various actions and effort. Like I mentioned the other time, a lot of actions is going on, addressing all this knowledge and technology to scale. Then the issues of policy also becomes very prominent. Who is actually communicating policies for agricultural research and development, as well as natural resource management. Then the institutional arrangement are their institutions that guide the use of the soil. The organizations that are existing that should work on the, and the issue of capacity should make us to think of systemic capacity itself. The system we have, does it have the capacity? And so we recognize that these institutional issues, the soft issues, or let me call it prominent around that is affecting soils in Africa. Now, this initiative did not just come up on its own. In recent time, soil issues in the world, Ratan Lau is there in this picture, came up to speak about this issue. As for Green Revolution Forum in 2020, a side event also was held on this soil initiative. Within these and many other programs that ran in the last soil initiative, a program that is African home, a program that is coordinated from Africa, a program group that is the issues of comprehensive partnerships, not leaving anyone behind, and that addresses the core issue that is leading to soil degradation or affecting sustainability. Role of galvanizing the stakeholders in Africa to develop this initiative. And then we have linked up with the Global Soil Partnership. And you agree with me that that looks like a big global level. It sits with the FAO in Rome. And we want to ask the head of the Global Soil Partnerships to make presentation, a proposal that was AFRISOILS in 2018. Now, the purpose of this presentation is actually to learn about the process that was used in developing that proposal then. Possibly we are going to learn as from this partnership. Then what has been going on since 2018 that AFRISOIL proposal was developed? What is the engagement process for these proposals? And what is the future of partnership, and as well as its African branch, the African Soil Partnership, and partner with the Soil Initiative for Africa. You agree with me that we're not thinking of starting from zero, because a number of knowledge, a number of it already exists. We come up with a program that delivers goods for the African soil at the end of the I'm going to call on David Nielsen to please introduce the speaker, and we're getting into the
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fatumbi. This is David Nielsen. I'm joining the meeting from Washington, D.C. I realize we've had a bit of a problem with the audio, but let's continue. Maybe the FARA side, you can try to see if that can be corrected. But welcome to everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to have Dr. Ronald Vargas of the Global Soil Partnership with us today to help guide the development of a soil initiative for Africa. Many of you are familiar with the Global Soil Partnership. Let me just say a couple of words about it before Dr. Vargas takes the floor, for those of you who may not know the partnership well. It was established in 2012 to develop strong partnership and collaboration and synergy of effort in actions to protect and improve soil fertility and soil health globally. Since its creation, the Global Soil Partnership has provided leadership in expanding the global discussion and collaboration on soils, in building and circulating information and analysis about soils, in establishment of regional and country level partnerships on soils, and that's true in Africa with the Africa Soil Partnership. And also, it has also worked in the area of development of capacities globally in working on soil issues, including in Africa. Dr. Vargas will probably say more about all of these points, and in particular, we'll talk about the AFRISOILS proposal that's been developed at the Global Soil Partnership. Dr. Vargas has led the Global Soil Partnership since 2012. And with his, I've been to their offices several times and has a very impressive team there. They're based at the headquarters in the FAO buildings in Rome. I think it's fair to say that we can think of Dr. Ronald Vargas as the Global Minister of Soils. So good morning, Minister. It's an honor to have you with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David. This is very funny. All colleagues from all Africa and beyond, thank you very much for the opportunity. I have you have a good day. And I will go straight to the point, because I know that, well, the Soil Initiative for Africa is there with a lot of, let's say, passion in order to move forward. So I will share what we have been doing or trying to do, because, you know, some things work, sometimes things don't work. So we will share this experience so that that can help you some ideas or ground about how things happen. And of course, I take opportunity also to salute the chair of the African Soil Partnership, Professor Victor Chude, who's attending the meeting. And I will go straight to share my screen so that I can present you the AFRISOILS and our experience on how all this worked so far. Just give me a second. I will share my screen. I can't share my screen so far because someone is sharing it. Okay, now I can go. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. So we start this work basically in 2011, trying to raise awareness on the importance on soils, because, well, nowadays the figure has changed dramatically, but 10 years ago, rarely you will see a politician or a country investing really on soils, albeit some amount of a rural project dedicated to fertilizers, okay? So that was the idea of soils. So we focus and work a lot in trying to change this situation and bring soils to the political agenda, because that is really fundamental. Otherwise, well, okay, so we started with joining forces, because FAO before was well known for having a very strong division on soils, etc. But as everybody and all the institutions, this was not the case anymore, especially during the 90s, where investment on soils reduced it dramatically. So our member countries said that we need to join first forces with all the institutions working in soils and establish this global soil partnership. to promote sustainable soil management. Something very important. The idea was, yes, to use scientific knowledge, of course, the best science possible, but it was fundamental to bring soils to the political debates and decisions, because otherwise the topic will never be considered at the importance that it deserves. And that's why we have this structure that for some people, you call it bureaucracy, etc. However, so far we demonstrated that it works, because now we bring every year all member countries from FAO, Ministries of Agriculture, to discuss about soils globally, regionally, but also nationally. In each country, we have a focal point nominated by government, but we also have partners who are universities, NGOs, anybody who is really ready to work towards sustainable soil management. And we implement all this through regional soil partnerships. So we have regional soil partnerships in all the regions of the world. And when I say promoting sustainable soil management, I just don't focus on soils for agriculture, because that has been limiting quite a lot the angle of how we look at soils. Soils provide many ecosystem services in which our life on Earth depends, but many of them are not valued. Why? Because some of them are invisible. If you talk about carbon sequestration, or if you talk about climate regulation or the recycle of nutrients, people, the people from the streets, they cannot see this. And we human beings are used to value all this. That's why we don't give this value. And what we are promoting is all this, what you can see in this screen. However, in 2015, we have identified that around 33% of our global soils were already degraded, okay? Which is quite a lot in terms of numbers. And these are the 10 soil threats that are threatening our soils, our health, soil health especially, okay? So if we just focus in one of them, be sure that the others will be more prevalent. So that's why we really need to have an integrated approach when dealing with soil management. And as you can see, there is no region that is free of soil degradation. Maybe the most developed countries do not have the basic ones, but they have soil pollution, which is something very bad, but very invisible. So that's just an example. That's why, as we are in FAO with member countries, we develop normative tools, because we want soil governance at national level. So we just don't want that we have small projects in the countries so that you solve some issue, etc. What we really need is to have a real institution that is behind soil health in the country. And for that, you need to have a legal framework, you need to have a real institution, and you need to have investment, so that you have the science behind, but also you have the implementation. So ministers of agriculture agreed with the revised World Soil Charter, in which we said that we need to fight soil degradation and increase productivity and provision of ecosystem services. Then we have the voluntary guidelines for sustainable soil management that address these 10 soil threats. And one very important, particularly in Africa, because you have been focusing a lot on soil fertility, is the International Code of Conduct for the Sustainable Use and Management of Fertilizers. Why? Because we realize that in many countries, we don't have a legal framework for fertilizers. You don't have all the fertilizer chain regulated. So quality, for instance, is not an issue. Nobody checks this and it's fundamental. That's just an example. And as I said, this is very important because we have three main issues when dealing with fertility and the use of fertilizers. We have regions with underuse, and I'm sure you will say that Africa is the one. We have the inappropriate use or misuse of fertilizers, and in some other regions we have the overuse. But in one country you can have the three as well. So it's very important that we look at this. But we keep talking about managing soils, and sometimes we are missing something very important, although we don't want to invest on this. Soil data. Now everybody said, and there are common words, we need to do evidence decision making, we need innovation, etc., etc. But if we don't have data and we don't rely our decisions on data that is good data, then we have problems. For instance, we have established this network of soil laboratories around the world. There is one, we have one for Africa, which is AFRILab. And in these laboratories, we make annually tests that we send standard soil samples, okay, for all the labs in the world, and they should analyze, for instance, pH for using the same method, etc. You will see the results, and there are many results that are going beyond the reality. And those are the laboratories that are analyzing your soils, and sometimes you are basing your decisions on that. So we need to enhance capacities, we need to harmonize methodologies, we need to invest in equipment, and that's something that currently we don't do, because the lab, the only thing they do is to, those that they need to purchase from ISO standards so that they can get it. But what about if you don't have that money to buy the standards? So this is an alternative way that is, of course, free of charge that we are doing, okay? And that data then is used to do what? Some soil maps, soil fertility maps. In Africa, it's very common. There are many projects doing those soil fertility maps so that you do fertilizer recommendations. But then our goal for us is to empower countries to do and be able to establish national soil information systems that are really providing good information coming from harmonized soil laboratories. Otherwise, we are missing a point here. But fundamentally here, and our experience in Africa is that we need to focus doing all this in a country-driven process, because currently and in the past, the approach was top-down. Okay, someone else is doing things for you. And we believe this should not be the case any longer. So we have been investing in training in Africa so that the African institutions at national level are able to produce their own data. This is one example, the soil organic carbon map that was produced by providing training and even equipment, because sometimes we want to ask countries to do digital soil mapping and they don't have the computers that allow to do that. So we started even distributing powerful computers that can do this. So then countries now are able to produce their own map. And when they need to report to the Convention on Climate Change, on the certification, they can do it themselves and not to download a product that is available on the net. Currently, there is a lot of efforts and interest on carbon sequestration, soil organic carbon sequestration. So we have one initiative that is called REC-Soil, the recarbonization of global soils. And we are working with countries in determining the potential of carbon sequestration at national level so that then we can guide where is the potential and invest, because that's a very important even investment framework that we can allow and follow, because there are a lot of interest for investment. We have one important program that is called the Global Soil Doctors that is basically working very well in the absence of extension services. So the farmers become soil doctors because they need to assess the soil health and find solutions to their problems. So this is really one channel of really reaching the ground. But then we work also on soil biodiversity, because soil biodiversity can help us to find solutions that are cheaper and can help us to increase, but especially stabilize yields of main crops. And that's very important. Currently, we are working with countries in Africa for producing the soil salinity map in the country, the carbon sequestration, and we also worked with them in identifying soil pollution. That one is very difficult, very challenging, because if the soil lab is already struggling with determining some common properties for soil fertility, imagine if they will go and do heavy metals, etc. So with all this background, I can tell you that in 2013, we established the African Soil Partnership. We do it in two regions. One was West and Central Africa, and the other one was for Eastern and Southern African countries, but with one partnership. And the idea was to allow each country to tell us what are the main soil problems in their countries, okay, and what they require attention for. And there was a common agreement from all the countries that we need to see a performance of the Abuja Declaration and how we can do if we can organize Abuja 2. That was a specific requirement from countries because they said that's very important. And countries requested capacity development because they wanted to get empowered, okay? So we started with the first task that they asked, which was beyond Abuja. Why? Because we identified together that there was a need to boost African soils, especially soil health. And the political commitment that was there in terms of fertilizer was good, but not enough because it was very narrow. So we need to widen the scope of this towards integrated soil management or sustainable soil management. And that's why we started with efforts to try to organize the second conference in 2015, because that was the ending time of the Abuja Declaration. And it coincided with the International Year of Soils that, by the way, was, let's say, proposed by us, and we follow up because awareness raising for us is fundamental. So we hired very important consultants in the region like Andre Bationo. Then we developed a document that was explaining why we needed to move beyond fertilizer only, but using that political framework, etc. We contacted the African Union, so we were working with them. However, it is 2001, and we were not able to organize this conference. So the political commitment is fundamental. Otherwise, any initiative, we can reach results, but those results will not be there institutionalized and will not have support in time. That's why we believe that this is something that we need to do, because otherwise we will be lacking this political backup. And as I said, we need to move from fertilizers alone because that's not the full solution. Since then, we have been working in trying to keep this partnership alive, because you need to keep in mind something. We don't pay the focal points. We don't have that. This is really something working in a partnership. So where you invest and you get something back. So we have been working with the focal points, with African institutions, especially at national level, in order to deal with all the 10 soil threats and different activities. And what they get especially is capacity development and some projects through our technical cooperation program. But something very important is not that we want to get all funds to implement activities. No, what we want is to trigger also actions at national level by advocacy at political level. For instance, examples are the establishment of the Nigerian Soil Institute. We triggered the establishment of national soil information systems in countries like Lesotho, Sao Tome, Sudan, etc., laboratories in Liberia, and I can list more things, but that is really one of the aims, because there should be not only international investment, the countries should be also ready to invest because they value soils. That's something very important. And we have been doing some important work, and like in Malawi, where there was a huge interest to do the soil loss assessment and then to value the nutrient loss in soil erosion and see how much was impacting in the GDP. But then we also had some actions on the ground, like as you can see there. And we, through the prioritization by countries, we were able also to mobilize other resources to, for instance, address the issue of soils for nutrition, looking at micronutrients, etc. But all this gave the origin to having AFRISOILS. So AFRISOILS is based on the priority setting by countries, okay? Why? Because Africa is continuously called upon to sustainably increase agricultural production. We always talk about agriculture intensification, but it should be sustainably. Then we also see that food security is fundamental. How to ensure it if we don't invest on soils? And what we wanted to respond with, it was with AFRISOILS. Why? Because we need to focus on soil restoration, especially on the degraded soils, because there are degraded soils. Then we want to increase soil productivity, but not for 1 or 2 years. We want to increase, but especially stabilize in time. We want to bring back other soils that can be productive, but were degraded. And we need to see, at the same time, prevention of soil degradation, rehabilitation of degraded soils, increasing soil productivity, but also the provision of ecosystem services in line of climate change adaptation and mitigation and biodiversity loss. No? So many issues at the same time, and that's the umbrella. But something very important, farmers are the key, especially on agricultural soils, and those are the ones who require the support, and they need to get some incentives, because they will not do it just like this. Especially if we ask them about how to sequester carbon to avoid climate change, etc. They need some incentives, and that's something that we keep saying. But we, in every regional soil partnership, we have an implementation plan. So we have our implementation plan in African Soil Partnership. And the summary of this plan is AFRISOILS, okay? A dedicated program to do what? To increase soil productivity in 47 African countries, at least by 30%, to reduce soil degradation by 20%, 25% in a 10 years period, okay? It can sound ambitious, but after looking at the investment that takes place in Africa now, and especially the capacities at local level, we think this is feasible, okay? So how we develop AFRISOILS, as I said, we have our network of focal points in all countries, but we also have other partners in Africa. We have a scientific intergovernmental panel, etc. So all of them are the ones contributing to this process. And the focal points in the country have the responsibility not to work as a person, but to bring universities, research centers, etc., to identify the issues that are happening in the country in terms of soil degradation. So they have to identify what were the main major soil threats in the country, what were the priorities to address these threats in the line of sustainable soil management, which ones are the current gaps, what are the capacities at local level in order to implement sustainable soil management. So these were the tasks given to these focal points, and each have to bring all this information for their countries. So it was a national or country-driven process in order to identify what needs to be done. Okay, based on these priorities, we define the following targets. You can see many. Okay, and some are there without numbers. Why? Because although we have calculations, we wanted to see what will happen in terms of the amount according to the budget that we could have. Okay, so we wanted to increase soil productivity in Africa by increase of 30%, soil degradation reduced by 25%, but then we want to reduce the degraded soils by restoring a number of farmers self-employed, because this will generate investment, food insecurity reduce, alternative extension services, especially through soil doctors, is there, national soil information systems at least in 10 countries. Soil pollution, you can see that is not an issue, but it is. Some countries say it, and that's why you have 5. And integrated soil fertility management was one of the main, let's say, ways of addressing soil fertility, so it is there. And soil organic carbon sequestration, again, as a vehicle for this. Potential expected results are specifically addressed here in terms of a number of hectares under nutrition sensitive agriculture, under conservation agriculture, and climate smart agroforests. As I said, those are priorities set by the countries. 10 soil laboratories facilities enhanced, soil erosion control implemented in a number of hectares, 200 trainers trained on various aspects of related to sustainable soil management. We also saw a formal capacity development through masters and PhDs. But what we need to emphasize here is that AFRISOILS is bringing together the priorities of all these countries, not only based on aspirations, but also in the realities at country level. Some countries are investing more, some other countries are doing less. So we have some examples of the activities that we have been already implementing with our own funds or the funds that we were able to mobilize. But as I said, it is fundamental that we get political support and framework. So that's the umbrella. We try to really bring and join efforts to have all these targets very clear set and indicators for their, let's say, performance. And nowadays, if you put, let's say, an investment framework for that, that will work, because as one thing is that you mobilize your own investment, and the other one is that countries are also doing, but they are not reporting, so they want to be part of that. Okay, so we need to enhance national and regional capacities on sustainable soil management. That's fundamental. Okay, training of trainers, especially soil doctors, farmers, innovative farmers. Those are really the vehicles that can make change. And then there is a huge space for scientific and technical cooperation among and between regions. And we are trying to do that among the regional soil partnership. So Europe with Africa, etc. So we are starting to develop this. And then very important, we need to really see these 4 aspects that I told you. Soil doctors program in Africa will work very well because you have many smallholders and they can be really someone that can trigger a lot of action at the community level. The political management and umbrella that we need to bring soils to the policies at national level. That requires a lot of advocacy, and that's why the link with Abuja. And of course, we need to try to see how to fill the gaps. Some examples of we have been doing. How much we have calculated for the first 10 years was $50 million. Maybe not as ambitious as many others will think. Why? Because the way we work is that we are not a private institution. We are UN, and our costs, let's say, are reduced somehow. But what we want is that funds go to the countries. And we play just a facilitating role because we have other partnerships and we have networks of experts for laboratories, for soil information, etc. So what we do is to bring and rotate this, but also we have been forming African experts in all these fields. So now they are the own trainers when we do trainings in Africa. So that's why this amount of money for this. And I will tell you what happened since 2018, when we have finished the AFRISOILS proposal and document. We started exploring with some donors, okay? And we are doing so far. One of the main donors that we are expecting the final answer from is the European Union, okay? Why they didn't respond immediately? Because they were entering into a new cycle of funding, and then they launched the Green Deal. Now, they promised us that they will respond to us, and this proposal is in line of the European Green Deal, so that we are, let's say, quite positive about the expected outcome. But definitely, we need, if not, then we will start looking at other sources. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you, of course. And from our side, we are ready to partner, because we are a partnership and we want to partner. And we share a lot the aspirations you have in terms of Africa-owned process. That's fundamental. Otherwise, it will not work. And that's why you need to really root this from the top to the lower level, but this should become institutionalized. Otherwise, you will always have small projects here and there without much impact, because we are not scaling up the good experiences that you already have. And in Africa, you have many in the same countries, because you have many initiatives by different partners. So I think that it is time that you have something stronger and bigger, because that's what you deserve. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ronald Vargas, for this interesting presentation. I mean, if you are able to see my table, yeah, I keep making notes and making notes. A number of issues of we are going to take response to this presentation, and I'm going to call on Dr. Jacob of ASARECA to quickly give some response to this presentation. After that, we will have the opportunity to raise questions and take comment and discuss this issue. So,
thank you very much, Wole. Your line is dropping, so I guess that you have given me the floor now. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, so it seems like you have a poor network. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone, and good morning. It's really a great pleasure for me to be invited to make a few comments on the wonderful paper and presentation made by Ronald here. So as my colleague Wole said, I'm Jean-Jacques Muhinda, the Executive Director for ASARECA. This is the Association for Strengthening Agricultural Research in Eastern and Central Africa. It's one of the sub-regional research organizations that work with FARA and a network of other African institutions under what we call the CADAP X-Pillar4 arrangement. And besides that, I'm also a soil scientist. That's my interest actually in attending this particular meeting here. Now, moving forward to Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
We lost you when you said moving forward.
All right, so for some reason my mic is going off. So moving forward, I wanted to make a number of comments to the wonderful paper that you just presented, Ronald. And I was saying that I fully agree with you on some of the key issues you highlighted in this paper, starting by the point you made on bringing soil degradation at the forefront of the political agenda. This is something that has been missing actually to scale up the interventions. I will come back to that. The second key point, which I fully agree with you, Ronald, is that doing business as usual, small projects here and there, is not going to help us achieve the impact that we want to see at the continent. Point number 3, you mentioned about strengthening the policy and the regulatory framework on the soil fertility management subsector. This is equally very critical. For some of us who work with the national government in the sub-regional research organizations, very few countries have actually prioritized the soil fertility management in their own national development framework, including their own national agricultural investment plans. This is key if we want to achieve the transformation we want. Next point, Ronald, I agree with you, and I know I've seen partners here on this call who are supporting countries to build their national databases, including the soil information systems. and it's very crucial. We don't have to replicate the effort, to replicate the investment, and even lose time on some of the things that have been done before, which are not properly documented and conserved. Lastly, you mentioned about prioritizing soil fertility reclamation within the national development frameworks, and I've already alluded to this. If we really want to make impact, not only at country level, at sub-regional, regional, and continental level, we need to bring the decision makers on our side. I've worked with the government for almost 10 years, all the way from the ministry, the National Agricultural Research System. If we continue implementing projects on specific sites within the countries, without these being mainstreamed in the national development framework, we will never create the scale that we want. Now, on this point, as far as I agree with most of your technical argument, Ronald, I wanted to share a few more insight on our line of thinking, really, as we move forward towards operationalizing the Soils Initiative for Africa. I've been lucky to be part of this process right from the beginning last year. And there are a number of ideas that we have been gathering, which I believe speak to your presentation very nicely. Actually, during this process of developing the Soil Initiative for Africa, we went through a very deep reflection. And the question has been, what is it missing to reverse the secular decline in soil health and fertility across the continent? One of the colleagues mentioned about a number of high-level side events that we convened last year and even this year. One was during the GRF in September last year. Another one was during the World Food Crisis, the Bolog Dialogue in October last year. The last one was actually early this month, together with the Syngenta Foundation, the African Seed Trade Association, FARA, ASARECA, and others. There are a number of key ideas that we came up with, which included, first of all, we came to an agreement that the problem of soil degradation and declining fertility can actually be solved. It's not something that cannot be done. Because success stories exist at small scale, the question has been, how do we scale those ones? I will come back to that. The other point we came to an agreement too was that the building blocks exist. Wole has already mentioned this one, both in terms of technical know-how, in terms of research programs, in terms of institutional structures. This is how we have been trying to streamline the Soils Initiative for Africa, building on existing institutional arrangement. Financing mechanisms are there, even the political awareness and even the leadership to some extent in some countries. The other point we came up with is that most of these success stories remained at a local level, and the programmatic effort to address the problem at scale have been inadequate. I like the fact that you picked an example for the project that was implemented in the Republic of Sao Tome and Principe, Ronald, which I had the pleasure to serve as a consultant. I've been the first person to build the initial base terracing in the country on 2 pilot sites in 2016, of course, as a consultant for FAO, but I've been following on this. Besides those 2 pilot sites we developed in Bom Sucesso and Saudade in Sao Tome, it has never been taken to scale. And the potential for soil conservation in that country is just unlimited. So this is the same problem across the board in most of the countries. The other point we came up with was that maybe viable, properly coordinated and scalable plan for addressing African soil decline, the decline in soil health have not really emerged, apart from the project-based intervention, which have been actually successes in many of the countries. And again, most of the elements of the institutional landscape that are needed to address African soil issues are in place. That's why we came up with the Soil Initiative for Africa. We have umbrella organizations such as FARA, which is working hand in hand with the African Union. the Rural Development Department, which is housing the CADAP XP4. We have SROs that work closely with the regional economic communities. We have the national research system, which will work with the national government. We all have investment plan in the countries. What is it that is missing actually to achieve the impact? What is it that has been done in Latin America, in South Asia, that cannot be done in Africa? Of course, we also concluded that we still have gaps, both on the technical information, the guidelines. I was very happy to see some of the publication you displayed here, the financial mechanisms, human capacity, especially the soil scientists is still a big issue. The soil science studies now in the universities across Africa is no longer attractive. Unlike during our period, the institutional innovation needs to come up. And these gaps actually can also be filled, even by the national systems. Now, we came to a conclusion that probably what is missing is a much expanded, a more coordinated initiative to address African soils problem at scale. And this actually requires a strong leadership, a coordinated planning, and even resources. I can tell you, participant, having worked with the government, financial resources is not always a problem. The problem has been, how do we allocate those budgets that we get from the central government every year? As I told you, I worked with the Minister of Agriculture for several years. I've personally been frustrated with the quality of investment. It's not about, availability of resources. It's prioritization of where we put resources to. The other point we came up with is that it will probably need to build upon the institutional landscape that already is in place, but also it will require institutional innovation to improve the effectiveness of the system of institutions. I'll clarify this point here. Maybe what we need to do is to try and talk to the right people across the continent and make sure that the soil degradation issue comes on the top of the agenda as part of the CADAP framework. We know that most of the development partners in the country align their investment with what is included in the National Investment Plan. If we don't have this on the top of the priorities, the World Bank, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the bilateral and multilateral donors, I've seen some of the colleagues who attended our side event last year here, they will not put resources on that. They align their investment and their resources with what has been prioritized in the national system. The other point as I conclude, this institutional innovation I'm talking about, we will need really to guide the coalition of African institutions, such as the private sector, the civil society organization, farmer-based organization, the regional economic communities, all the way to the African Union Commission, to help, farmers with the support from external development partners to adopt best practices and scale some of these innovations that already exist. As I come to a conclusion, once we have all these elements together, we really should be able to come up with an African plan for scaling soil fertility intervention with all the technical elements that you presented, Ronald. And that plan actually, once we have it, it can be replicable at any country level. Last time we met during, I believe it was during the GRF, all the participants came to a conclusion that we probably need an African-led initiative that is replicable at country level and which is probably directed to those that are closest to the challenge. And that is the plan that is most likely going to succeed. I will probably stop here, and I know we have another session for discussion, but these are the few comments what I had on, again, the wonderful presentation by Ronald here. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, JJ.
Dr. Wole, your line is very poor. I don't know if the others are probably hearing you.
Can you hear me?
David, you probably need to come in here. We can't hear.
JJ, I wonder, JJ, if you could facilitate discussion at this point, because Wole's connection is so intermittent. Would you be able to step into that role?
I can, David, but I believe Wole has been taking note and probably putting together the question from the chat room. But since we're all live stream, and since we're losing Wole here, maybe I can step in and ask if there's any of the participant who can just raise hand. Until you raise hand, I can't see whether you have a question or not. To be honest, I've not been following the discussion on the chat room. Unless, Wole, you are able now to get a better.
I have a question. I
see somebody
Can you
called
hear
Albert Kobina.
Yes, please. I'm a PhD student from Ghana, but I do my PhD currently in Germany and in my final year of my PhD. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well.
Yes, I am also a soil scientist, but more of someone who looks at the soil from the health perspective, and I am dealing more with remediation. I deal more with remediation of toxic elements, specifically arsenic and chromium, lead, and those other toxic elements in the soil. And I look at how we will be able to treat these particular soils from chemical point of view, and also from biological point of view, using plants specifically, which is also known as phytoremediation. So both of these are gentle, sustainable remediation approaches to toxic elements or heavy metals in the soil. As someone who is more interested in how the soil, especially in Ghana, we have mining. Ghana is most often the leading producer of gold in Africa, and also the 7th producer of gold in the world. And you realize that mining activities releases a lot of toxic elements into the environment, and it's really an eyesore. And you find leaders, you find authorities, they do nothing about it. And the mining resident people are exposed to so many health impacts. I have done many papers which I have modeled the health impact of this element, or of this toxic element, on the health of children, the health of women, as well as the health of men. And it will marvel you to know that the impact is very scary.
Can you try to be brief, Albert?
Yeah, it's very scary. But
we have many participants who want to have a floor.
So to summarize, one thing I've observed about most practitioners in soil field is where we relegate the soil to production of food crops, but we tend to lose focus about how accumulation of this toxic element in the soil will affect human health as well, and to also design a policy strategy or framework able to address some of these issues.
All right, so thank you very much, Albert. I'm not sure if Wole is able to talk now. Otherwise, I will probably invite Ronald to comment on the issues raised by Albert. I see two more hands. One will come from Chris Daudu, and the other one from Banudu. I'll come back to you. Let me give the floor to Ronald first. Yes, Wole, just come in after this. Let's hear from Ronald first.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And well, greetings, Jean-Jacques. I didn't recognize you before, but now I, of course, remember you in our time in Sao Tome. Great to see you there. Well, the issue of soil pollution or contamination, you can call it both, is, yes, is a very scary one. However, I can tell you that it is, we call it soil pollution, a hidden reality. We all know it's there, but we prefer not to even think about it, because if the moment you start digging, it's like a Pandora box, you start looking at many issues, okay? So currently, as I said, we will be launching the global report on soil pollution that many African experts also contributed to. So it's a first attempt to see what is the situation in Africa. So we have a full chapter dedicated to this. Now, currently, there is a growing interest from the nutrition side of food, asking for food safety. And food safety in terms of pathogens, but also of contaminants. And that is one of the greatest opportunity we have to address this issue, okay? So when thinking about this initiative in Africa about soils, as my of course, humble advice is that we need to look at these 10 soil threats, including soil pollution, because many times we think that's not a problem in my country. It is a problem of industrialized countries, but it's not true. Mining, the waste that are generated by cities, etc., all of them are pollutants. And don't forget plastics, which is something common to everyone. It is one of the worst. And nowadays with the COVID, with, you know, the masks we are using, etc. So we need to address it. And slowly, this is becoming also an issue that is getting attention. So it's good that you are researching. I'm sure your research will be useful in the near future, and I hope countries in Africa will look at it, but I'm sure it will not come from the soil group. It will come from the nutrition and the health group, because that's where the impacts are clear.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you very much for those comments. Wole, with your permission, we can take two more comments. One from Banaduth, and the other one from Chris Daudu, Prof. Chris Daudu. In that order, maybe we could take both of them before we get comment from the presenter. Over to you, Banaduth. You can unmute and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Very loud and clear.
Okay, I'm Professor Lal from the island of Mauritius, and good evening to everyone, and also to those whom I know very closely, Ronald and Professor Chude. Hope you're doing well. Mauritius, we are in a completely national lockdown situation. We are not doing very well with COVID, but still, okay, we are trying our best. Well, this Africa Soil Initiative is a very laudable initiative, in fact, right? And I am very, very, satisfied that Ronald has not just taken a new initiative, but he has looked back at all the initiatives that has been taking place on the African continent, right? The African Soil Science Society, what you call the OAU, STRC, Scientific Technical Research Commission. I can tell you, because I have the experience, I have been with African soils from 1989, right, till today. And I am very, very satisfied that Ronald has taken all those initiatives. In fact, together with Professor Chude, I am also the chair of the Group 5 of the African Global Soil Partnership on Harmonization. Rest assured, Ronald, I am still very active, right? And I have been able to convince my government, at least, to come up with sustainable agriculture, and soil science is an important part of this initiative. So, gentlemen, don't get discouraged. As somebody said, we have to keep on hitting until the politicians really, they take us into consideration. So I wish you, all of you, a very good, success in the soil initiative. And I'll be there all the time, right? If needs be, I can just pop in for anything. Thank you so much for giving me this chance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Laliji. I believe this is just a comment. If you allow, we can move to Chris Daudu, and then Prof. Ayode for your questions or comments. Chris, over to you. I see your hand.
Yes, good afternoon all. I want to appreciate the FAO and FARA and all the other stakeholders on working together to address key issues in terms of improving soil productivity in Africa and the soil initiative. And I listened on Watch's presentation. I just wanted to add a brief comment that even though I appreciate what the FAO is doing, I also noticed the presence of my boss, Professor Chude, on the team. But I still feel that there is need to strongly strengthen this new soil initiative strategy in terms of policy, extension, and analysis services to advance our discussion from the table, which has been happening over the years, to be able to be transferred to the field and farmers. Whether anybody agrees or not, the key to agricultural transformation in Africa and Nigeria rests upon improved management options for the soil. Apart from the technology options that are coming from the field, there are a lot of policy and extension challenges that must be harnessed and tackled together as a single component to advance this discussion. But again, I want to commend FAO and PARA for this initiative and believe that with strengthening with a broad range of relevant stakeholders will help advance discussion from just a table discussion to practical options that will be seen on the field, making impact on soil productivity in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a brilliant comment, Prof. So let me ask yourself and Prof. Lalije to take down your hands and give the floor to Prof. Ayoade, and then we'll get Agnes. Ronald, take notes. If you want to make a comment on some of those interventions, you will still have the floor. Prof. Ayoade.
Thank you very much. I'm a soil scientist from Nigeria, and I'm appreciative of all the efforts by FAO and particularly Ronald. I believe that we will get there. I want to say something similar to what the last speaker said, and that is about soil policy. I believe Ronald was even talking about the importance of the politicians. We need them. And if we can think of a policy that will bring regulations and strategies that will maybe bring in some laws that will control misuse of soils like mining, like pollution in the oil fields. I believe if we struggle that way, it will help us in the way people treat the soil, all right? And it will reduce our problems. Not only that, it will help them to attach more importance to soil. Soil is the wealth of a nation. And we need people to know this by struggling to get a policy for soil use and management. I believe that's an area that we should spend our efforts on. In Nigeria, we have started that, and we believe that if we don't give up, we will get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. That is another wonderful comment. There was a hand raised from Agnes. I don't know if you've taken it down voluntarily. Otherwise, as we wait for more comment, maybe let me invite Ronald to make a few additional comments on some of the points raised by the participants here.
Yes, thank you again. Well, greetings to my dear friend and colleague, Professor Lal, with whom we have been working also in different issues in partnership, and many of the things I share, of course, are a result of all the efforts he and other focal points and experts in the region have done. Definitely, well, other professors have been also, let's say, sharing some of the same perspective related to policies and for all the how the soil should be managed, including all the facets, because one, extension is fundamental, but then we were talking about also issues about contamination, okay, reduced contamination, and that needs to be clearly highlighted, because the policies that we need to see are an integrated approach. And for us, that's what we call sustainable soil management, okay? So you need to ensure the provision of ecosystem service of soil prior and after the intervention. So it should remain the same. And you need to see the 10 soil threats. So policies, how you reach really policies. There are many ways to do that. However, we can start from the top. You have the African Union, you have many organizations like Asareca, etc. But the African Union is your umbrella. So that should start with, let's say, advocating, give an example for a regional policy on how you manage soils that then can be adapted by every country. That's one example. But then at country level, there are some countries who are doing that already, thanks to the advocacy and awareness raising about this issue, especially by scientists who tell and show the government that there is need to do that. So you have two entry points, the demands at local level, but also some regularity frameworks at regional or at global level. At global level, we do it. And I can tell you, when we, just an example, when we were working on the International Code of Conduct for the sustainable use and management of fertilizer, the African group of ambassadors in FAO were opposing to the code because they were afraid that with the code, basically the Abuja will not be fully implemented and they will not be able, countries will not be able to use fertilizers. That's why they were opposing to that code. But we clearly demonstrate to them that instead the code was going to help, because it's not that we are banning the use of fertilizers, but we need to make proper use of it so that we avoid overuse that basically does not contribute in farming in the farmer's income, but can affect the environment, the soil, especially if you don't know the quality of the fertilizer you are using, right? So finally, we got their support. But then we would like to use this code in Africa, for instance. But we need to get the proper institutional framework to do that. So I believe, and I coincide with the two professors, that we need to move into policy. It's fundamental.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ronald. I don't see any other hand raised, unless you can drop something in the chat. I have a few questions that have been dropped through the chat room. There's Henry Sibanda, who's been asking for contact details for the focal person for Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Lesotho. Henry, these contacts have been provided by Sebastian, who worked with the GSP in Ghana. So there's a point raised by Edward Yeboah, where he talks about the need to strengthen the National Soil Initiative to complement the regional initiative. How do we achieve this? I think this is something we've been discussing from the beginning on building a bottom-up, approach towards a comprehensive African soil initiative, and unless Ronald wants to comment on that. Then there is a last point raised again by Prof. Chris Daudu. He's talking about, while noting the critical role to improve soil management options to agricultural transformation in Africa and Nigeria, there's a critical need to strengthen the new strategy of soil initiative in terms of policy, extension, and advisory services to allow the advancement of previous and current discussions from the table to the field, and farmers, i.e. to practicable, sustainable field practices by smallholder farmers. This is a point well taken, Prof. There is Albert again asking, how do we, maybe the question is missing something, maybe how do we support the young scientists to get involved in this type of initiative? So unless Ronald, you want to comment again on this, but really these are comments that you have already alluded to, but we still have a few minutes to go before we close. Maybe I give you a chance again.
Thank you very much. Just to close, I will share one example that is taking place in the European Union, okay? So they have a new initiative called Farm to Fork, especially addressing what it was mentioned now, okay? So of course they are very advanced, they have the resources, etc., etc. But what they are trying to do, you know, they give incentives, financial incentives to farmers, provided farmers adopt good practices that they, well, they don't oblige, but there is a number of practices that are there. And now they are doing an adjustment of these, let's say, commitments the practice should fulfill in order to get access to those financial incentives, okay? And many of them are related to what we were discussing. First, soil health is the top priority. Reduction of agrochemical inputs to the soil by at least 25%. Then issue of pollution, okay? So they need to, well, not only by the reduction of agrochemicals, but they have a regional soil information system where they monitor yearly all these issues. So they need to really take attention to that, but also biodiversity, okay? So those are four big areas that the new, they call it CAP, will take place. But what they are really trying to address is that, yes, we can give incentives, but you need to secure for us the provision of ecosystem service by soils. And we should ensure that our soils are healthy, okay? Those are, let's say, the two demands or requests. And that's just an example to tell you that policy works directly with farmers, but something very important is science in between, okay? Because the numbers coming on how much you need to reduce, what you really need to do in terms of increasing carbon, etc., is scientifically based, okay? So it is just an example to show you that things can work. And that's a regional, let's say, regulatory framework, but it's applied at national level, okay, at local level. That's why it is very important to keep all this in mind, because otherwise you can miss one piece and that can risk everything. Otherwise,
Ronald,
yes.
Ronald, before you close your statement, how do we keep young scientists interested? How do we get them involved? You know, this is something that has been coming often in the discussions. Colleagues who are teaching in the university colleges, we really realized that the number of students joining soil sciences is decreasing. You know, the output is decreasing in terms of, you know, knowledge generation. And this is a question someone is asking here. And I guess Albert is one of those young people, few young people who are still interested to go for this type of science. So what is your learning from that as you have implemented this program? I'm aware that some of the focal point in the countries are quite young scientists, but it's not the case across the board. Over to you, Ronald.
Well, nowadays, as you know, some cross-cutting areas are gender and youth. Those are two very important cross-cutting areas to the work in the UN and countries agreed, etc. So there has been a lot of efforts to create opportunities for youth to be part of all these initiatives, the decision-making, etc. So if we talk about soils particularly, I should admit that soil science per se, till 2014, more or less, has been an area that there has been a lot of decrease in terms of interest from young people to join, etc. But currently, let's say since 2018, there is a lot of investment on soils. Indeed, if you see daily, there is a job opportunity for soil scientists here and there. Even in our group, we are always looking for prominent soil scientists, and we want young people with new ideas, fresh ideas, okay? But something very important that I repeat to youth, because as youth now is there as some cross-cutting topic that we all are promoting, is that youth should take all these opportunities with commitment and effort, because sometimes they take it by granted that now youth is a topic that is there, but should not be taken like this. They should really make an effort and use all the energy in order to demonstrate why they should be part of all this. But I can tell you, there is huge interest and there are many opportunities for young scientists. And in the work we do, we really give opportunities to youth through different ways. Any event, we have many events here and there. We have scholarships for especially youth for developing countries to participate. We also promote some scholarships for them to attend short courses. We bring them also in different teams in the regions or at global level, etc. That's in our case, but also when developing initiatives like this regional, etc., we always try to involve youth, gender, not because we are forced to do that, but because we need new ideas, you know, and youth is very innovative nowadays because they are in line of technology, they are in line on how to bring things together. And don't forget something important. Youth is very engaged with the social media. And we need to keep investing on awareness raising on soils, okay? So that everybody understands that the food that is produced by farmers in their farms is produced in our soils with water and seeds, etc. But they should not forget soils as a component that is important, okay? And youth are very creative in order to engage and help us to raise awareness and advocacy. And again, innovation and especially new topics, like our friend who was talking about soil bioremediation or phytoremediation. Those are not so new, but new areas that are given priority. So I encourage all young people to join these efforts and bring ideas on the table and work hard, because they maybe have more energy than us, right?
Sure, sure. That's a brilliant response, Ronald. I'm very happy that there's a hope for a proper succession, you know, for people who are going to take over from our eminent professors and scientists and the researchers who are currently aging. And I believe that area you mentioned about taking advantage of the technological advances in the soil sciences is one of the avenues for attracting actually young people. Now, the time has come for me to invite my colleague David Nielsen, who have started with us this journey of designing the Soil Initiative for Africa, to make a few closing remarks and some vote of thanks for the remaining 2-3 minutes. Dr. Wole, I hope I stepped in properly for you. I can see you now on the screen. Unless you want to say one word before David comes in. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Please just confirm for me if you can hear me now.
I can hear you properly, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, wow. Well, it is internet devil really troubled me today. But I mean, we will have opportunity by chat to discuss what I put down on the note. And then we will keep in touch with all the partners and friends that connected with us today. I mean, restoring African soil or sustaining African soil is doable. And we have the knowledge, we have the passion, and we have the will to actually get this initiative on ground and get running with it. Thank you very much. David, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Wole. I want to start by thanking all the speakers, Dr. Fatumbi, Ronald Vargas, Global Minister of Soils, and thank you also, Jean-Jacques, for your remarks and for stepping in. As I think you've all pointed to the importance of turning around the long-term degradation of soil health in Africa. In many dimensions, it's important: economic, environmental, even social, nutritional, health. For many reasons, it's important to do better. And I think, as you have all explained, this is something that is possible. It's not an impossible thing to do, and many of the building blocks already exist. The Africa Union Commission's Department on Rural Economy has asked FARA and some of the other institutions to take a lead on putting a plan together for how to turn around that situation. And Dr. Fatumbi is the leader of the working group on putting together that plan, and I'm a member of that working group. So thank you for including me in giving me a chance to wrap up the session, Dr. Fatumbi. I think among our objectives for this meeting were to increase awareness of the working group and of the idea to have a soil initiative for Africa that is African-owned, but also to begin to establish a very close relationship, a working partnership with the Global Soil Partnership and of course the Africa Soil Partnership in moving forward with this initiative. And I think from Ronald's remarks, you know, it's very clear and evident why it will be so valuable to build from all the work that's been done by the Global Soil Partnership. So once again, thank you to Wally, and I'm sorry we didn't have the benefit of hearing everything you said, but thank you for taking the initiative to lead that group and for your remarks today. Thank you to the Global Soil Partnership and Ronald for giving us a very clear idea of what Global Soil Partnership is doing, and particularly the Africa Soils, the AFRISOILS proposal, but also a broader understanding of how valuable that partnership can be between Africa and the Global Soil Partnership, and including, of course, the Africa Soil Partnership. And thank you to Jean-Jacques for a very, very useful response to the other presenters. And of course, thanks to all the participants. So I think, Wale, over to you, but I think this is the close of the program for today.
Thank you very much, David, and everyone. I mean, it's time to just close this. And let me give one or two sentences on the way forward. The recording of this session will be made available to all partners, that are all participants, and others that may want to have access to it. It is directly on FARA's YouTube channel now, so it will be there, but we will also make it available from Zoom and share the links with you. And we are going to carry you along as the process evolves in developing the full initiative. Just be sure that your voice will be heard in developing this initiative, both the technocrats, the researchers, the implementers on the field, the farmers, and the private sector partners, the women, the youths. Your voice will be heard, and we are going to fit your voice into developing the initiative at the end of the day. Once again, thank you very much, and do have the best of the rest of the day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Maybe to clarify that a desk for the Soil Initiative for Africa has been established within FARA Secretariat in Ghana, in Accra.
Yes.
I've just seen someone asking how to join the conversation and the initiative. And the focal person for the whole initiative is Dr. Prof. Wole Fatumbi, the last speaker. Otherwise, have a lovely day, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.